you for joining us today. My name is Magali Diaz, and I am with Partners Resource Network. I am the regional coordinator for San Antonio area. And if you guys are new to Partners Resource Network, we are the nonprofit agency that operates the Parent Training Information Center for Texas. We have 4 projects, so you might know us as PATH, PIN, PACT, or TEAM. And we offer information and referral, technical support, and IEP support to our families or people with disabilities from ages 0 to 26. Today, we're going to be talking about special needs planning. So thank you so much for joining us today, Allison.
Thanks so much for having us. We are excited to be here. For those of you that are new to Consolidated Planning Group, I'm Allison Schaberg, and Consolidated Planning Group is a holistic financial planning firm. We really custom design plans for people based off of their needs, their wants, their goals, and really really develop an overall plan for the future. So today, say hi, Andy. We have Andy out here. He's with CPG as well. And so today we're going to be talking about planning for special needs and really just addressing the ongoing care and planning concerns. So what I like to say is today's presentation is kind of a quick overview of a lot of things that should be on your radar. Some of the things you may have already taken care of, and that's great. Other things you may have never heard of, but as you're looking at how do I get started in planning, where do I pick up from where I left off? Maybe you're new to this whole thing. You could be anywhere along the way in your planning, and I think that you'll. I hope that you'll take away at least one nugget that you can kind of implement in your family's plan. So to tell you a little bit about myself, I am a mom. I am a mom to 4. I have 2 special needs kids. I have one that is still a minor, and I have one that kind of crossed over into adulthood. So I would say, professionally, I eat, sleep, and breathe this, and this is all I've ever done for 27 years. But personally, I live this as a parent, and I would say that in my own experience, even doing what I do for a living, it's challenging and it's tough. So the more you can learn about these types of things and the more you hear, certainly the better. So, as far as getting started with special needs planning, where do you need to start and what do you need to do? So the first things first, what we say is we really want you to work with a special needs planner to help you formulate a plan. There's truly an intersection with special needs planning and overall financial planning. And a lot of times people don't think of it that way. They put special needs planning in one bucket and financial planning in another bucket, retirement planning in yet another. And the reason that there's an intersection with special needs planning is because we work with a lot of families that have a family member that's likely going to need care for the rest of the individual's life, not just your life. Okay. So we're also looking at a fact that most people need to spend 25 to 35 years in retirement. That's a long time. So that's a lot of planning and a long time to be in retirement. But so having a special needs child that may need care for the rest of their life is almost like a third retirement. We have husband and wife, and then we have the special needs child. So, planning carefully matters, but working with a special needs planner is really nuanced in the rules and how to have money in the right buckets and how to allocate things appropriately to maximize benefits and minimize any risk of losing any type of benefits. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. So we want you to gather all the necessary planning documents. What does this look like? These are basically all of your statements. Any information about any insurance that you have, and any documents you have. So legal documents, bills, trust, guardianship, necessary statements. These are all investment accounts, 401ks, 403bs, pensions, anything that you have out there, bank accounts or other things like that. And then, of course, any information that you have on all of the insurance policies, both group, which you might have through your employer, and then outside policies that you may have purchased with an outside carrier that has no connection to your work at all. So those are part of the things if you had just a quick list of what you needed to grab together. When we talk about developing a letter of intent, we actually do have a webinar on letter of intent, and we do have a PDF document that's form fillable for a letter of intent. But basically, I like to call this a love letter, the family love letter. You're writing a letter to a family member or a future caregiver of your loved one with disabilities, and this is all things about that individual. So as parents, we know these things. We forget these things. We just know these like the back of our hand. But if you were incapacitated today as a parent, you couldn't speak, or you are no longer here on this earth, this is everything that you need a successor caregiver to know about your child. We have a lot of kids that are nonverbal, that can't communicate these things, and we also see that we have families that maybe one person more than the other handles these things. Maybe somebody's working and the other one's a caregiver, etc. So this is going to be all the kind of information about what their diagnosis was, the medications, the doctors that they see, the schools that they've gone to, what makes them tick, what makes them melt down, what are some other things that that people need to be aware of. And I'm really summarizing this. The document of the letter of intent is, I think it's about 19 pages long. So it can be a pretty emotional thing that you start writing. This is something that you can do on a Word document. Clients of ours, we just provide them the PDF, and like I said, it's form fillable. But we do recommend doing it on some type of computer or word processor, because as things change with your child, then you can easily update it as opposed to it being like handwritten or what have you. Okay. And so if you don't have a letter of intent, it's okay. Just put that on your radar to get started on it. And maybe you give yourself a timeline of, I'd like to have a letter of intent, like at least a draft of a letter of intent done in 3 months or something. It's not something that you sit down and do all in one setting. It would be too overwhelming. Okay. So we want you, when it comes to the special needs planning, we also want you to think about your vision of how you hope things will look for your special needs child. But I also want to say for yourself, your own retirement and your own future. There's sometimes as caregivers, we're always so focused on everybody else that we kind of put ourselves on the back burner of what it is that we want. So if you've spent 25, 35, 40 years working, what do you want your retirement to look like? There has to be balance. So we understand that you love your kids and you want to be with your kids, or to some extent. There has to be balance in taking care of your own health, and doing some of the things that you had hoped to enjoy in retirement are also important. Okay, so one of the main questions that we hear over and over is how will my child's care be funded? How are we going to get there? So the first things first, we want to preserve eligibility for state and federally funded programs. So we're talking about SSI and Medicaid here. Um, so basically, SSI and Medicaid, it is based off of assets. So a lot of the families that we serve, when you have a child that is a minor, they don't qualify for SSI and Medicaid. We hear from families that say that they applied and they were denied, and they don't understand because their child is clearly disabled. But it's truly based off of assets. So for SSI, the individual has to have a qualified disability, but also they have to have assets under $2,000. They can have one house, one car, and assets under $2,000. And if you're married, it's one house, one car, and assets under $3,000 to qualify. So, but the magic thing that happens is when your child turns 18, it's based off of your child's assets, not yours. So this is where we want to make sure that your child doesn't have assets over $2,000 in their name. Because even though they're still living in your house, even though you're still deducting them on your tax return, they're not going anywhere. It is based off of their assets, not yours at that time. So if you're taking notes, the thing to note here is that that you should schedule an appointment for the month that your child turns 18 to apply for SSI and Medicaid. And so it doesn't have to be after the birth date. It just has to be the month of the birthday. And we recommend families calling a couple of months in advance to schedule this appointment with the Social Security Administration. As of right now, the Social Security Administration is still not meeting face-to-face unless it is an emergency. But they are doing phone appointments, but they do get backed up. So call in advance for that. Okay. So another way that we can fund care for our kids is through a special needs trust. Okay. So the key is having money in the right buckets we had mentioned earlier. So a special needs trust and an ABLE account are two places that we can have money over that $2,000 or $3,000 number that we just spoke about, and it will not cause the individual to disqualify for SSI and Medicaid. Okay, so we're going to talk more about special needs trust, and we're going to talk more about the ABLE accounts in just a minute. So another thing is funding the special needs trust. How do we do that? Well, I mentioned earlier that a lot of families, they're going to be spending 25 to 35 years in retirement. So when you look at their savings or you look at their 401ks or investments, most families are going to need the money that they have saved in retirement. Okay, so saying that that money is going to be there for the special needs trust in the future is not, it's not a sure thing, I guess that's what I'm saying. So what a lot of families do is they fund a special needs trust with life insurance. And what I mean by that is they pay for their child's care just like they always have, out of current income, out of current resources, and then retirement, out of retirement resources. But upon your death, then the life insurance on your life, the beneficiary is the special needs trust. Okay, so that's how it is funded. The special needs trust is funded in the future. Okay, and then we talked about the ABLE account is another place that we can have money that won't be counted against us for SSI purposes. Now, one of the things that we didn't go deep on, but I just want to mention that is important. When your child has a disability and the disability started prior to age 22 through the Social Security Administration, as a parent, mom or dad, if you retire through the Social Security or you become disabled and are getting Social Security disability, your disabled child, your minor child, if that happens, is entitled to 50% of your benefit, but your disabled child is entitled to 50% of your benefit of retirement or Social Security disability. Now, if you have more than one kid, then that 50% would be divided amongst the kids, okay? But the point is Social Security or Social Security disability is based off of work quarters. So a lot of our children don't have work quarters. So when your child is determined disabled in the eyes of Social Security prior to age 22, they're considered a DAC, a disabled adult child, and then they would be eligible for 50% of the Social Security or SSDI if one of the parents is on benefits. Upon death of that parent, the disabled adult child would be entitled to 75% of that amount. So one of the questions that we get all the time is, what if I delay my benefit, my retirement benefit to age 70 as opposed to 67? Will that make the benefit higher for my loved one? And the answer is no. It will make the benefit higher for you if you delay taking Social Security from 67 to 70. But the 50% is going to be based off of the full retirement age benefit at age 67, unless you take it at 62. So, and then it would be based off of the lower amount. Okay, so switching gears, and I just want to invite anybody, as you guys have questions, we'll get to as many questions as we can. I know a lot of this stuff is confusing, but please feel free to put your questions in the chat. When do I need a special needs trust, and what about guardianship? So again, a special needs trust is going to preserve future benefit eligibility while providing resources for your special needs child. And there are a couple of types of special needs trust. There's a first party special needs trust. There's a third party special needs trust. And so we're not going to spend a lot of time in the weeds on it, but basically a first party special needs trust is the kid's money. So if they get a settlement, there's a lawsuit or something like that, child support can go to a first party special needs trust. So we see a lot of families in divorce situations that child support will be continuing past age 18. So it wasn't an issue before, you didn't qualify for SSI and Medicaid. But anyway, in the divorce decree, it says that child support is going to be continuing past age 18. And when that happens, that child support is going to need to be directed to a first party special needs trust, or it is going to disqualify the 18-year-old from getting SSI and Medicaid. So that's just, if that's your situation, mark that down. There is a Medicaid payback on a first-party special needs trust. So if your loved one with disability passes away, there is language in a first-party special needs trust to pay back Medicaid. There is another one called a third-party special needs trust, and the third-party special needs trust is there is no Medicaid payback on that. So when we talked about leaving life insurance to a special needs trust to fund future care, there is no Medicaid payback for that. Okay, so let's talk about guardianship. Guardianship, supported decision making, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney. These are all things that are all in the same vein. And honestly, we work with families every single day, and the families that we work with are all across the board. We have some families that definitively will need guardianship. There's no question. The IQ is below 70. The child is nonverbal. They're non-ambulatory. I mean, there's any number of reasons why guardianship might be warranted. Okay, but we also see a lot of families that have kids that may not need guardianship. Maybe supported decision making is effective, or a power of attorney and healthcare power of attorney. And some of the situations that we see for that are high functioning autism. We see ADHD. We see some of the diagnoses from a maturity level. The kids may be 2 to 4 years, maybe even more, less mature than their peers. So when they're 18, they're really not there yet, but we're still hopeful and optimistic they are going to get there. So what we say about this is you really want to work with a qualified attorney to prepare these documents. And I can't stress this enough. I know that we have a lot of do-it-yourselfers out there, and there's a lot of ways that we can save money and do things like that. When it comes to special needs planning and these types of things, this is a not do-it-yourself kind of thing unless you want your child to lose their benefits. So we attend a UT special needs planning conference. The laws change all the time, the rules on what you have to do and what you can and can't do as it relates to Social Security and all of those things. They change frequently. So you want to work with an attorney that works with special needs, not an attorney that's a generalized attorney that says, yes, I can do that. So I'm not saying that they're not smart. I'm just saying that there are specific attorneys, just like special needs financial planner, there are specific attorneys that work with special needs, and that's who you want to work with. And we're always happy to provide really solid referrals in that department. And we have referrals all across the state, not just in one given area. So depending on where you are, we're happy to provide a referral on that. Okay, so what's going to happen to my child when I'm gone? What are we going to do? So we hear that from people as well of, I don't have somebody, how are we going to pay for this? Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? So developing a future care plan now will answer these questions, and it can be painful going through this process. I talked to a family a couple weeks ago, and their child, who is a teenager, is very aggressive, and has had a lot of a lot of those emotional issues and aggression and other things like that, which has basically warranted, although they have a huge family, that no one is interested or willing to be a successor caregiver for them. And so they were talking about the pain of that discovery, or so what I would say is, I have people that say, over my dead body, my child is never going in a facility. Okay, we're never doing this. And that's okay. But what I want to say is, consider touring some facilities. They have day programs, they have residential programs, they have respite programs, they have all kinds of different programs out there. And so these are things, when you've got a kid that's in high school that's transitioning out, 18 to 22, having a plan of where we're going from here. Is it a transition program? These facilities, these kids work. They work, they earn money, they're important, they're around peers, they have friends. So when we think of residential facility, I think we think of horrible nursing homes or something like that. But what I would say is, go tour some of these, because they're also pretty cool. And the residents, they usually call them residents, are super, super happy there. And so this is kind of this balance of having an enjoyable retirement and having a great relationship with your loved one. And the other thing is you're not going to be 40 or 50 forever. Okay. So, we've got families. A couple weeks ago, Andy and I had somebody reach out, and basically the story is I'm 84 years old and I'm caring for my granddaughter, and she's full care. She doesn't walk, she doesn't talk, anything like that. And basically she has me, and I'm not as quick as I used to be. I'm pretty good, but I'm not as good as I used to be 20 years ago. And I'm starting to think about what's going to happen to her when I'm gone. Obviously, I'm not going to live forever. So we want you to start doing these things while you're younger, getting your kids on waiting lists, exploring. We have lists of all of the facilities across the state and who takes Medicaid, who doesn't, like who's private pay, and different facilities serve different disabilities. There's some places will be a fit for your child and some places won't, but it's just good to know what's out there. And if because these waiting lists can be 5 years or longer, it's okay to put yourself on the list. You still reserve the right to say no, but we don't want you to be in a point where a person says, oh my gosh, I have nothing, I'm sick now, I can't do anything, and I have nowhere for them to go. Now what am I going to do? Because that becomes a big issue quickly. And then this is a delicate conversation, but make careful considerations before naming siblings as a future caregiver. Okay, so I get that the siblings love each other. Again, I said I have 4 kids, so I got that. But I also know how I felt when I was 20 or 30. You have hopes and dreams. I'm going to college. I'm finishing college. I'm gonna get married. I'm gonna have kids. I'm gonna have a house. Whatever your hopes and dreams are. Maybe you're gonna travel the world. I don't even know. But everybody, young and starting out, you have hopes and dreams. And so what we like to see is that a future caregiver, like maybe a sibling as a trustee of a trust that is going to help plan and navigate care for their loved one so they can still be the sibling, the loving sibling and the friend, um, and not have that sibling basically their life be on hold. We've seen siblings that can't get married or can't keep a spouse, or there's all these things that spouses didn't sign up for of caring for a special needs loved one. It has nothing to do with the sibling doesn't love, their brother or sister, but we see some obligatory yeses, and that's where it becomes a problem later. So we try to shy away from that. Okay. So as far as it relates to benefits and where where we're going and what we're doing is making sure that you have your assets in the right buckets is the first step. Um, Ensuring your special needs family member's name is not set up as a beneficiary on any life insurance, investment, or bank accounts. And this is a big fat what? What? Wait a minute. I think I've done that. Okay. So if you think you've done that, that's okay. Like 99% of people that we talk to have done this, and you're not alone. And it's a mistake that you can easily fix on your own without paying somebody to do it. Okay. So basically, what happens a lot of times when it comes to beneficiaries, people do this. If I die, my spouse gets the money. And if I die and my spouse is already dead and gone, then that's easy. My kids get the money. Okay. And then we name our kids individually outright. That's what a lot of people do, and that's wrong. Okay. So it's wrong because, so first I'm going to talk about kids that aren't special needs. Okay. It's wrong when you have a minor child that is not special needs and you name them as an outright beneficiary, unless you're like deliberately doing this. But basically, what happens is you have a 7-year-old, you die, you have a 7-year-old, you've named that child outright as a beneficiary. That money, the child's a minor. That money is going to sit in trust until the child turns 18. And when the child turns 18, they're giving them all the money. Okay, that's what happens. And it's a horrible idea, even though your kids are geniuses like mine. Kids getting like huge sums of money at age 18 is a bad idea. So that's the first reason that we want to do it differently. The second reason for the special needs child is, again, we name the child outright. So again, the child qualifies for SSI and Medicaid when they turn 18. Oh, but wait, they had the money in trust, and the trust gives them all the money outright to their name at age 18. And then, oh yeah, they have more than $2,000, so they don't qualify for SSI and Medicaid. Okay, so there's an easy fix for this, and basically this is through your will, or also having a trust. So through your will, you can have a testamentary trust for the benefit of said minor child, and you can have a testamentary special needs trust for the individual with disabilities. Okay. So basically, that means that you don't already have a trust set up, but upon your death, the trust will be formed. The money will be distributed as you have allocated inside the trust, how you want it to be allocated. And as far as the special needs trust, again, the special needs trust will be formed upon your death. And so when life insurance pays, it's going to go to the special needs trust as opposed to your loved one outright, and they will still maintain their benefit eligibility. So this is really important. I'm sorry we're probably spending too much time on that, but like I said, probably 99% of people have some kind of issue with this. Life insurance, 401k, 403b, anything that you can name a beneficiary on is what you need to, if you're taking notes, put on your list to double check. Okay. So you also want to ensure well-meaning family members don't leave assets to the named individual as opposed to a third-party special needs trust. Okay, so well-meaning family members, I'm typically talking about grandma and grandpa. Some of them are pretty private. They don't tell us that they're doing these things. We don't know. They just want to help, but they didn't understand that it needed to go to a special needs trust. So they accidentally left your child a large sum of money that would cause them to disqualify. So again, an easy fix for this is to make sure that you have a third-party special needs trust. And so it says the beneficiary, instead of John Smith, it's going to say third-party special needs trust or supplemental needs trust for the benefit of John Smith. So that's how we accomplish this. Okay. All right, ABLE accounts. So we talked about ABLE accounts earlier. This is another place. So we had special needs trust, and we had ABLE accounts, were places where you could have money above the $2,000 limit for SSI and Medicaid. So an ABLE account is organized under the tax code 529A. We've heard of 529C before for College America, some of the other ones, but 529C, but this is A. It came about in 2014, and it acts like a 529C for college, but basically for an ABLE account, it has a much longer list of things that you can pay for out of an ABLE account that you cannot pay for out of a 529C. So basically the beneficiary is the account owner. Income earned is not taxable, but contributions are not deductible. Okay. And because we're talking in Texas, they're not deductible. It does not jeopardize SSI and Medicaid or other public benefits, but there are special contribution limits that we have to be aware of. So the basic things that you need to know, to have an ABLE account, the disabled individual needed to be disabled prior to age 26. Contributions could be made by anyone, including the individual with disabilities. It's up to $15,000 annually. However, you can't have more than $100,000 before you disqualify for SSI. Okay. So if the owner, if the person with the disability is actually working, they can have an additional $12,490 of their gross income to go into the ABLE account. So distributions for qualified disability expenses are not taxable. The ABLE account is for achieving a better life. So basically what you can think about, we're going to talk about what you can pay for out of it, but what you can think about is if the expense could be construed of achieving a better life for the individual with disabilities, it could basically be paid for out of an ABLE account. Okay. Tax-free growth on investments, and you can change the investments twice a year, and you can roll it over to other family members who are eligible beneficiaries. Okay, so an eligible beneficiary is another individual whose disability started prior to age 26. So we do have some families that have more than one child with disabilities, and we have others that don't. So that could be problematic. And also at death, just like a first party special needs trust, states may be able to claim reimbursement for expenses paid by Medicaid. So you want to just keep that in mind. So one of the questions that we get all the time are, why should I have an ABLE account and a special needs trust? If I can have money in both of these accounts, why should I have both? And then another question is, can I leave my life insurance proceeds to an ABLE account? So first things first, no, you cannot leave life insurance proceeds to an ABLE account. They could be placed in an ABLE account later, but they can't be a beneficiary of an ABLE account, okay, for life insurance proceeds. An ABLE account can pay for expenses that a special needs trust can't. SSI is designed to pay for food and shelter. Okay, so an ABLE account can pay additional food and shelter costs. A special needs trust is not supposed to pay for food and shelter, such as rent or mortgage payments, things like that. Okay, so that's why you might have both. And also of note, you can only have $100,000 in an ABLE account. You can have an unlimited amount of money in a special needs trust. Okay, so when we are doing future care plans and how much it's going to cost for care for the future of an individual with disability, the care numbers are in the millions, not 100,000, right? So that's why we would have both. Okay, so these are some items that an ABLE account can pay for. So we kind of talked about some of them. Housing and rent are the big ones that a special needs trust can't. There's a lot of things. One thing that we did learn too is that an ABLE account can pay for tutoring and college. So we talked about the 529C can pay for college, but an ABLE account can pay for college and tutoring. A 529C, it's questionable on whether or not you can pay for tutoring. It's questionable. It's questionable on the no side. It's kind of gray as far as how they construe that, but it's basically no on a 529C and yes for the ABLE account. So we also get questions all the time for families that say, I already have a 529C. I thought my child was going to be going to college. Maybe they're not. Maybe we're not sure. Should I convert this to an A? And so the answer is you can convert it to an ABLE account, the 529C to an ABLE account, but you are limited to the $15,000 a year number that we had talked about. So if you have $100,000 sitting in a 529C, you need to get working on converting it sooner versus later. So will the 529C be used against my child for SSI and Medicaid? And the answer is no. Okay. So if you have the money in a 529C, say you have 2 or 3 kids, you've got another kid that could use that 529C, you can simply change the beneficiary on that to another kid. Okay. Or you can transfer that to the other kid's 529. That is one thing. But as a 529C, the account owner is the parent, and then the kid is the beneficiary. In an ABLE account, the account owner is the individual with the disability. Okay, so that's the difference, and that's why the 529C is not going to be counted against the person with the disability, unless you take a disbursement from the 529C and it goes to the individual with the disability. Then that could affect things adversely. So I know that's kind of a lot of information, but um, I think there's a lot of confusion on that out there, so we just wanted to share. So these are some items that a special needs trust can pay for. It's a long list, and there's a long list for ABLE account as well. One thing that a special needs trust can do is buy a house outright, so not mortgage service, but they could buy a house outright. And we have a lot of families that talk about that they hope to have some type of group home or some type of small house that their individual with disabilities could live semi-independently. Maybe it's next door. We've heard people say, my mom's house is next door. She's left us the house. We want to convert this. So those are some things that you can think about that you definitely can do. Okay, and we hit on this already, that basically food and shelter is what you're not supposed to be paying for out of a special needs trust. And so just your basic bills that you would pay for your home are some of the things that you shouldn't be paying for out of a special needs trust. Okay, so this is a long list. This is if you're taking notes or taking pictures, take a shot of this slide. So these are just some bullet point things. We've talked about a lot of these things, and we've kind of hit on them. But these are the things that should be on your radar as it relates to special needs planning. We talked about developing a special needs care plan. We can help you with that. We're able to estimate future care costs and advise how much it's going to cost if you're going to do partial residential, full residential, if you've got special needs schools. There's all kinds of things that families need, estimates and as far as planning long-term financially for. Texas waivers and interest list. We've had past webinars on this, and I think we have one coming up soon. But the Texas waivers and the interest list, people say all the time, are you on the list? And I hope that most people have heard of this, but basically your local, intellectual disabilities office can help you get on the list. Depending on where you are, depends on which area you're in to get on that list. But like for instance, Harris County is the Harris Center, Fort Bend County is Texana. So we have these organizations, and this is where you can get on the interest list. HCS. There's all kinds of waivers. The waivers are designed to waive off the cost of care. It might pay for an attendant. It might pay for nursing. There's a myriad of things that they can cover and pay for. And most of the waivers, not all, but most of them are for individuals with IQs between 70 and 75 or below 70. That you hear about a long waiting list, and there is a long waiting list, and I hear anywhere from 10 to 17 years and anywhere in between. But the idea is even if your child's IQ is higher than 70, you still want to get them on these lists, because you never know. And you prove eligibility at the time you come up on the list, not at the time that you put them on the list. So if you need help in figuring out how to get on the list, let me know. And then also the class list is a separate a separate number to call. So some people think that they're on all the lists, but they're not. So there's like Texas Home Living, and there's HCS, and there's class, and there's a yes waiver for mental health issues. There's a whole bunch of them, but class is a completely separate list. So we talked about the SSI, SSDI. We want you to understand the difference and knowing when to apply. Child support directed to a first-party special needs trust. This is super important. We hit on this, but this is something that sneaks up on people all the time. So again, if you find yourself in this situation, just make sure that you're having that conversation with your ex or with the attorney or whatever you need to do. So that way, when the child turns 18, if child support is continuing, that you're going to have that directed to a special needs trust, so you can still apply for the SSI and Medicaid. We talked about how to fund the special needs trust, guardianship. So as far as the guardianship is concerned, I want to just kind of circle back with that. You can apply 6 months prior to the child turning 18. And this is something with COVID and with the way, there's a lot of Zoom hearings and different things like that. But we definitely do, if you're going to go down that guardianship highway or whatever, if you need help making a decision on what is the right fit for you, get that ball rolling 6 months prior to the child turning 18. What we see is most schools work really hard to work with families and things like that. But honestly, if you don't have any of these things in place and your child turns 18 and they're still in the public school, the school doesn't have to talk to you as a parent anymore once the child turns 18. So you want to have something in place. Most schools are not ugly or hateful about this, but they could be. And so you want to have the legal, rights and docs in place for that. Post high school education, again, we have lists for this. There are all kinds of programs with universities and community college and things that are not college at all, but there's certificate programs. There are many programs for people with disabilities out there. So don't think that there aren't options for your children. We do have a separate YouTube meeting where we kind of talked about some of the other programs that are out there, but learn about them. They're actually pretty exciting on what they have out there, and there may be a fit for your child. We talked about the waiting list for community-based services, and then we talked about the YouTube channel, which we will send a link. So that today's meeting has been recorded, and we will send out a recording to everybody. We'll also have a link to the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel, which will have past events that we've recorded, and we have all kinds of topics from SSI, SSDI, you name it. We have topics on that. You can kind of go out there and search for ones that are most appropriate for you. Let's see. Okay, so we had a question. I'm going to questions here. Can we get the presentation? Yes. So again, yes, the presentation and the recording will be sent out either later today or tomorrow. And let's see. Okay, and let's see if I have any other questions. All right. So I just was looking in the chat box. If you guys have any questions, I know we talked about a lot of stuff today, and a lot of it is kind of deep and wide. And then, when we have families on, as many families as we have on, we there's all kinds of scenarios that families are dealing with, and we're happy to chat with you, kind of about your scenario and what might be, what next steps you might need to take. So, so we do offer a complimentary consultation. So, should you be interested in working with Consolidated Planning Group and kind of going deeper with what your unique situation is, and kind of what your needs are, we're happy to work with you on wherever you are in the planning process. So we have some people that are just starting. We have some people that are very, very advanced, and they're saying, we're looking at the beginning of the rest of our life. We have a child that's almost turning 18, and we just want to make sure that we don't, make these missteps or these types of things. So, that's where we come into play, and we can definitely help you. So, I would just like to thank everybody for being here today. Thank you for your time, and Magali, thank you for having us, and we look forward to sharing with your families again anytime that we can.
And don't forget to come back for the 24th. You will be doing college planning for special needs families. So next Wednesday.
Yes. Okay. Well, we're excited about that, and again, thanks for having us, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
You too.
Bye bye.